Hello, everyone. Thank you for watching us live. Us meaning because I got four guests waiting to come on to the studio. So today's topic is very, very interesting. It's something that I've been wanting to do for the longest time. It's all about humility, and not just any humility, but Asian humility. Because we all know, if you're Asian, you know that when you were growing up, our elders, our parents always tell us, "Oh, don't be so arrogant. No, you cannot say so much. Be quiet. Be humble." So uh, humility is such a big thing in the Asian culture. So in my own experience, uh, the idea that I get about being humble is about downplaying yourself. So I checked up on the dictionary. What are the definitions of humility? Oxford Dictionary says it's about uh, having or showing a modest or low estimate of one's importance. Then Merriam-Webster Dictionary says reflecting, expressing, or offering in a spirit of deference or submissions. So I'm just reading off the screen. Yeah. Okay. So I for a long time I've been really curious, and I've been wondering, is this concept of humility, Asian humility, as taught by our previous generations, is it still useful in today's environment? Because we know today people are very, very distracted. The pace of life is very fast. Can we really wait for people to notice our achievement? Because that's what our parents and grandparents used to say. Oh, if you're good, people will notice you, and then you'll get promoted, or you will get the sales deal and whatnot. Would people today even notice if you don't talk up yourself? And what about the work environment today? We work in very mixed cultures. So not just in terms of nationality, but also like we work with the Western culture, cross borders, and the Western culture, they have a very different concept of humility. So they don't see it as like we Asians do. So that's why I got four very intelligent minds from different Asian countries to discuss this. So let's welcome them one by one. Okay, so to start off with great impact, I've got Aisha. Hi, Aisha.
Hey, Jin, thank you for having me.
Hi. So Aisha Biba is from Bangladesh, and now she's living in Sydney. So she brings leaders from adversity to advantage and ambitions. If you guys were following me, you know last week I just interviewed Aisha. It was such a great session. If you missed it, please go and look at it on my timeline. And next, I have Mazuki Muhammad. He's from Malaysia. Hi, Mazuki.
Hi, thank you for having me here, Dean. I'm excited with
Right,
about the
nice.
discussion we are going to have.
Great. Okay, so Mazuki helps people rediscover wealth inside out. He says to be wealthy, you need to feel wealthy first. So that's very interesting. Maybe I'll interview you on in one of my future sessions. Okay. So next, we have from my very own country, Mervin from Singapore. Hi, Mervin.
Hi, Dean. Thanks for
Hi,
having
hi,
me.
hi.
Good to see you,
Hi.
Aisha and Mazuki.
Hi. So Mervin, if you know him, he's an advocate for networking, and he helps especially the introverts to rise up and kind of build themselves up and show themselves forward, right? And last but the most, not the least, and definitely the most impactful is Tony Miranda from the Philippines. Hi, Tony.
Hello, Dean. Thanks for inviting me back again. And yeah, I'm very excited to be with big people like Aisha, Marzuki, and Mervin, and you as well.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
So people, friends, Tony is a transformational coach, so based in Philippines, and she has quite a following, right, Tony? Okay, so let's get right to the discussion, right? So okay, so I want to ask, very very curious. Instead of asking you, oh, what do you think of what humble and humility means to you? I want to ask from you, based on your experience, when you were growing up, what were some lessons in humility taught to you by, could be your parents, could be the elders or people around you, those people who are older than you? What were your experience about being humble and humility? Let's start with Mazuki. What do you think?
Thank you. When I got this topic and the list of points that you gave us,
Mm,
I was wondering the definition of humility for me when I was growing up. Actually, I came up with a blank. Because yes, there were the behaviors that we were supposed to have when we are with elders and all that. However, I think it was the way that my mother framed it. It's about showing respect to others. So it's not so much of being lesser than others, but behaviors of showing respect to others. For example, if adults are talking and I need to pass in front of them, so we are taught to bow our head a little as we as I approach them and seek permission before I pass in front of them. So it is not so much of uh, inculcating in me the sense or the state of I'm lesser of importance than others, but it's about respecting others. So as I was growing up, that was my take on it actually.
Okay, so let's hear from Tony.
Yeah, so when I was growing up, basically for us Filipinos, we have been known for being hospitable and humble.
Absolutely,
So the
yes.
usual things, so the usual things that you hear from your elders, from your parents, and even teachers that, when you deal with people, make sure that you are humble, make sure that you give way. And those are the stuff that we usually hear. However, personally, when I was growing up, I witnessed two versions, the proud version and the humble version. So I've seen those who are not so expressive, and I realize it depends on the status. So this is just my observation, Dean.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
those who are more on the average living status or income status, they are more of the humble people. But those who belong to the fewer segment, the rich and the rich, they are usually the proud person. And as a child, I actually got confused which one to follow. And maybe later, maybe I
Wow.
can share more about it.
Yes. So
Yeah.
humility seems to be associated with the status, social status, right?
According to my observation when I was younger.
Nice. Okay. So Aisha, what about in Bangladesh? How's your experience, and what do your culture generally see humility
Sure.
as?
Sure. It's not quite different than what Marjuki said and or what Tony is sharing, but the way I saw, I'll say it's more like answering to anyone, elder or to the teachers or parents, is like arguing to them.
Oh,
So it's
yes.
not put an opinion. It's been taken as if I'm arguing to them, which is taken as a disrespectful manner, right? Cannot do this. So that's one part, and I totally agree with Tony. The people behave in two different way if they want to show the status, the social status, and it often comes with the position they hold, like the social designation provided by any company, but it's not created by themselves, which will help them to say that this is the place you belong and this is why you should be proud of yourself, right?
So it's almost like they need to be validated before they can disregard humility and
Yeah.
just say what they want to say, right? If not, then
Yeah.
you have to follow the rules. You know what? Even though all three of you are from different countries, I think Singapore has the same story. Let's hear from Mervin.
Oh, I have to go back a long way. So mine, I remember Mazuki mentioned mother, so she was the one impacted my life growing up. But it was my grandmother because I'm a straight-born Chinese, which means my forefather came from Malaysia, Malacca and Penang. And although and Tony and mentioned about our status, we, I came from a large family, 11 of us, a football team, and we
11
were
siblings
11. No, I have eight siblings, including myself, 9 children. So 11 total. We have
in the
football team.
family. All
Yeah.
right.
And so we really live day to day. We were quite poor before, and definitely that has to do, the status, your wealth status has to do with the humility
Mm,
aspect growing up. But my matriarch grandmother, maternal,
mm,
she's Peranakan, which means she's a nyonya if you go and check it up. And so she was the matriarch of the house. She
mm,
came from a rich family, became poor, but she still had her pride. So that's the
wow.
part I reflect back and say, oh, we were poor, humble, and yet we had to have that pride that I think Aisha was talking about. We still were proud of who we are, and the family that we have. So yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, talk about status
Mm.
and growing up. Thanks.
So, Mervyn, I just want to
Yes.
know, were you ever reprimanded for not being humble? I can't imagine it knowing you, but I'm just curious. Have you ever, when you were
Oh,
growing up, or
okay. Okay, for a side joke, I like to tease Dean. I can't talk about humility, but because I'm a very humble person.
By the way,
So,
I don't consider myself humble either, but I'm
yeah,
not arrogant either. So where do
yeah.
I stand? So,
I
Mervyn.
don't think I was. I was. I would say I'm known to my parents and my aunties and all that I'm quite a obedient child. And
Ah,
so, what my grandparents and my parents expected of me to show respect, I listened and I followed. And now growing up as an adult, also I'm quite compliant, in that sense. So
mm,
because of my nature, I think very rare occasions, yeah, growing up, they asked
mm,
me to be humble, I didn't have to be reminded. Yeah,
mm,
so not to be growing up. It's only when I'm an adult, seeing some success, that peers have to remind me, Mervyn, stay humble. It's like,
wow.
remember where you were. So these are well-meaning friends who warn me about not be proud or arrogant. So yeah, I get that now and then.
Any of you, anyone else, were you ever reprimanded? So seems like Mervyn has been praised for being humble, right? Anyone else have been praised before as you were growing up, being in an Asian culture?
Maybe I
I,
can answer to
yes,
that.
yes.
Okay, growing up, I really was not so humble person. I actually hear this from, they teach that in school, but I believe because of some developed coping skill, I became proud.
Mm,
And it's just that probably the people around me are not so expressive. So no one really told me before, stop being proud and so on. But what I noticed is I lost some friends because of me being so proud. So not really being told, but it's really more of an observation that yeah, some of the good friends I had before kind of distance themselves, maybe because I'm too proud.
So
And I
you said,
realized this, yes.
so what I'm hearing is there are certain behaviors that are out of the norm in your culture, and that's considered proud. So I'm curious, what, if you still remember, what are some of these behaviors?
Um, I'm not really generalizing Filipinos in this
Of course.
story, but it's more of the status that I
Mm,
experienced when I was younger that made me develop certain coping skills. For example, how to deal with pain, emptiness, and the usual unmet desire. I began to create a facade that I'm strong, that
mm,
I can be in control, and that led to to being proud, because
mm,
in humility you are teachable, you're willing to listen, and I believe I was not that type of person when I was younger.
mm. So it seems like humility is all about being less seen, less heard, even not talking about yourself, let other people talk. Aisha, is that how you experienced it? Is that were you ever say that, hey, you are not being humble or you're being proud? Stop it.
And the moment you start enjoying your achievement, Tony, correct me if I'm wrong, that's the moment people start perceiving that you're showing your pride, right? But I can also enjoy my achievement. I can also feel good, and I want to share my good feelings to others. That may come from that point that let's share our happiness rather sharing
Mm,
my sorrow. I'm not good. I'm not. enjoying, I'm having this problem, sharing all of this information on the social media, people jump into showing some sympathy. But the moment you start showing some of the achievement, it's very interesting to see that some people they don't prefer to say like appreciating from the heart because they perceive that I'm showing my pride. Actually, not being right.
So Marzuki, do you think that Malaysian culture and the Malay culture, they highly favor being humble to a point where, you know, nobody wants to talk about their achievement? What's your
I
experience?
would say to some extent, yes. Because funnily enough, currently I'm watching on Netflix a TV series which is based on the Ayutthaya period in Thailand. And that gave me an insight into the mindsets that people have. The feudal mindset is that the noble men, they are the ones who are allowed to show how great they are. So for them, the behavior is to show I am great. Now, for the general masses, you are not supposed to show how good you are, how great you are. You are supposed to show that the noblemen are more than you, others are better than you. And this is, I would say, to a large extent, what influenced the culture that we are experiencing today. To a large extent, I would say Malaysia is still having the feudal mindset that boss, you are better than me, you are greater than me, I am not so good. So if I show that I am good, then I am not being humble, then I am being proud.
Being
So
disobedient, right? If you say something and then you counter, even to get a to offer a counter proposal or counter idea is considered rude, right? I think we all can agree, despite us coming from different Asian countries, right? Yeah. And that is probably one of the reasons why interestingly, we are all trainers and speakers in some sort, right? So all five of us. So is that why when we are in a training situation and we ask for ideas, it's so difficult to get ideas, especially if they are all Asians in there, right? Yeah, it's okay. So I'm curious. Okay, Tony, you went through a major transformation. So, friends, if you want to hear about Tony's transformation, do check out my timeline. She's one of the first few that I've interviewed. Amazing story. So, I want to know from the others, Mervin. So, how has humility and the meaning of humility changed then when you were young and now as an adult? I think you'll be able to handle, as adults, we are more in control of our behaviors. So, how has it changed for you?
Well, I don't think it's changed very much. It's been ingrained in me, the values of being humble, respectful, and all that. If I may just mention, because of my faith in Christianity, I'm reminded about humility quite a lot. Yeah, so now and then looking at the verses tells me the important elements, the good things, why staying humble is really good for me. So I don't think it's changed very much. Is what I think Tony was mentioning about perception, is when I show a little bit more confidence, and that's when they think it's arrogance. So and when you get feedback like that and say, oh, I don't want to get to become arrogant, I want to go back into being humble, and so I actually restrain myself. So if you could say, I think you mentioned in a write-up, these are self-limiting, because of peers, because of what our attendees, right, at workshops and talk feedback to us. And so we say, oh, okay, I better fine tune a little bit. So, so I wonder whether, when will we ever be at our best potential? If we are always thinking, oh, if I go too much, they are not happy, and so they think I'm like that. And so I'm wondering, this overthinking, it becomes self-limiting for me. So I have to be very careful about
Actually, that
not going into overthinking. Yeah.
I'm with you. So one of the reasons why I wanted to do this discussion is because I'm wondering, is, like the title says, is this an humility? Is it an enabler or a derailer? And Mervin, you're trying to say that what I think you're saying is that when you are when you want to when you want to project your achievement and your strengths, people start to say, hey, you cannot, you must.
Yeah.
So how
Yeah.
are we ever going to show our full value to the world? Because as business owners, as a very ambitious career person, you need to show it, right? Okay, because we are
Yes.
not really working with so many different cultures. So the we all know that the Western culture don't see humility as like we do, and they are very comfortable talking about their strengths. um, it can be a good thing in many situations. It can also be a bad thing in many situations, right? So now I'm curious to everyone, how has trying to be humble or being humble affected your progress, be it in career in the past or now as a business owner yourselves? Let's start with Aisha. Aisha, what's your thoughts on this?
A lot. Like I had to like change a lot of
Mm.
me because I'm in a different place. And
Okay, I just want to point out something, Aisha, and to my friends who are watching. Um, Aisha, you lived in Bangladesh all your life, and then 5 years ago you moved to Sydney. So maybe we can see two perspectives. How were you in Bangladesh, in the Bangladeshi culture, and then how you have to change? You had no choice but to change. I don't know whether you need to change or not. I'm assuming you need to. How do you have to change in Sydney, in Australia?
so the first of all, yeah, the lifestyle change is a huge change, but
Mm,
at the same time, the lifestyle can be changed if you change your behavior, right? So
mm,
even if I'm here, but I see that my old belief that I'm not supposed to be upfront to ask a question that may not be treated as a positive sign, which was true in back in my home country, but it's
mm,
not true anymore in here. So if you're not upfront, if you're not straight that I'm having a conversation to sell this product, and at the end if you say this, I'm actually having the conversation to sell the product, so it's a huge mistake that we do in
mm,
our culture. So nobody take this as a positive behavior. So
mm.
but remember, our root says that having being upfront and approaching directly is not is a pride, and it's not applicable. It's a arrogance at some point. So I have to unpack all these inside things. Still I'm unpacking, I'm not finishing
All
that.
your social programming, I would say. Social
Yeah, that
programming, yeah.
reprogramming, so
Mhm.
yeah, so we have to get into the deep inside of our value.
Mm,
Some are my core, we can still stay with that, but there are some that we have to revise over the time because of the change of my
mm,
time and my place and my identity, most importantly,
mm,
because I'm actually not selling anything except me and my knowledge. And if I
mm,
am not present in the social media, if I don't like to be visible, then how people gonna have that idea that I'm selling this skill of me, and how do they understand this? It's a very
mm.
controversial place that we have to play, because sometimes if I'm overly visible, people think, oh my god, she's trying to sell herself, but actually I am. Whatever people say, I'm actually selling myself, nothing else, because we are doing our own business, every
Mm.
single of us, right?
Yeah, even just taking on that line of reasoning, I do teach workshop on employability, and one of that is interview skills. And what I notice in a lot of the participants, and I think I've trained and coached about 400 over executives of different levels. What I notice is they can talk about what they did, but they cannot sell themselves through what they have done and what they have achieved. And a lot of them find it very, very difficult. And I think that's what I'm hearing in what Aisha is saying just now. What about Mazuki? Have it ever been difficult for you? Has it held you back because maybe you lost some deals, or you were affected in the past? If you were working for someone, how has humility affected you negatively?
Okay, so probably for me, it has not affected me negatively because, as I mentioned, my mother presented it to me as a way of respecting others, and
Mm,
that became a value to me. Until today, I find it is joyful for me to respect others. Whenever I behave in way that is respectful of others, I experience joy. I feel joy because of it.
mm,
Now, the thing about humility is that it is, as you mentioned, the definition. I like it when you give the definition from Webster and all that. It is about having a low self regard. The question is, low compared to what? So, if you were to compare yourself having low regard with respect to other human beings, then it becomes unhealthy. Then you become
yes.
needy. However, it becomes healthy when you have a low self-regard you have a low regard towards yourself when compared to your deity. So that becomes healthy. So it is unhealthy when you have a lower esteem compared to other human beings because we talk about the seven self concepts.
Mm,
One of the self concept is self-esteem.
mm,
Self-esteem is unconditional. So if I were to base my esteem on my wealth as compared to another person, if I were to base my esteem based on my capabilities compared to another person, that becomes toxic, that becomes unhealthy. So to be able to differentiate between esteem and confidence, because esteem
mm.
is unconditional, confidence is conditional on competency. So if I were to learn kung fu, so I will have a higher regard towards my kung fu teacher because he has higher competency in kung fu than I am. However, it doesn't make me any less of a person. So
That's
having
nice.
a clear understanding of what you are comparing with and having a clear self-concepts, the concept of self-esteem, self-acceptance, self-confidence, self-efficacy, optimism, capitalization, and integrity. Once you have a healthy self-concept, then this thing called humility is a non-issue. It is about uh, fitting in with the cultural behaviors that helps to build rapport. So that's all that I see what it is.
So, what I'm hearing from you is that real humility comes from first having self respect, accepting yourself, and then you respect others for their competency, for probably their status, their positions. And that is the best way because you don't feel lower than others. You just feel like others have things to share that you may not think about, right? Yeah, it's good. Tony, what about you? What do you think about humility and
Humility.
how we can project ourselves?
Okay, so how humility has affected me, whether it derailed me or made me become successful, I realized dependent on how I viewed myself. So
Mm,
growing up, as I was sharing earlier, since I had a distorted view of my
mm,
identity, everything is like more of a survival thing, more of a coping skill. Humility had a it's not my priority because when I needed to survive, I needed to use strength, what else, to brag and to control.
it's like
During
get your
I
your
remember,
goals at all costs, right?
yes,
To get your
and
goal at all costs.
for me that time is more humility is more of like a negative thing when I was younger because if I'm not assertive, I mean, humility is equivalent to not being assertive,
Mm,
not voicing out what you think is true, and it's just like in layman's term, just shut up and be quiet. But when I learned my real identity,
mm,
when I have now the correct view of my self-worth, my identity, my value, as well as the correct source of my confidence. Humility now became part of my leadership. So everything, the perspective changed. So I know now that one of my purpose is to become, or I am now, a visionary leader, which entails one, to be humble. So what is that? I need to be teachable. I need to always assert the truth without really using ego. I need to also collaborate, because when you're humble, you also accept that you cannot do anything, right? So I need to collaborate. I need to also acknowledge if I cannot do it, because that's being humble. And all these things, I remember I never had that when I was younger, because surviving for me that time is to do it on my own. As long as I can survive, as long as I will become successful, successful before is a different meaning. Now success is to be able to gain trust to the people you lead, that they will trust on your leadership, to leave an inspiring legacy. That's why you don't aspire anymore to control everyone. You don't aspire also to control things that you cannot control. And I've learned to be contented. If this is what is going to happen today, I don't anymore think so much about the future. And Aisha was right. I learned how to sell by just being humble, because I became authentic. I don't need to even invent, to exaggerate anything about my service. I just have to be humble and authentic, that this is what I've learned. These are the skills that I have experienced. And these were also my failures that I'm going to teach you. And now I believe it has been helping me with my success as to a speaker and trainer.
Very beautifully put, Tony. It's very nice. So you're saying that just because you are a leader or you put yourself in a leadership positions, it doesn't mean that you disregard other people's opinion, because everyone else is just as valuable. They have thoughts, ideas, and opinions that you could use in your leadership role, right? Great. Okay, now working on that topic, right? I want to know, I'm a business owner, you are all business owners. Now I've achieved something really great. I need to show, I need to tell. And that's what we do a lot on LinkedIn, we do on Facebook. We need to do a bit of show and tell so that people will know. But now, are we saying that, oh, because I'm humble, I want people to know that I'm humble, I shouldn't put all these things out into the world? What's your take? Mervin, let's start with Mervin.
I've learned networking some time ago, and I realized that if I have challenges to brag about my achievements, what I do is I work through people to brag on my behalf. And so it's
How much
like,
do you pay them?
it's a technique. No, if you apply the relational, that means there is a value add in the relationship with these individuals. And so I dare not call raving fans. I have followers and I have some fans, and it's working through them so that they will brag on my behalf. And I want to tell you that all this happened even before Facebook times. So it's really working through others. They value you, you respect them, they respect you, and you find ways to get others to know about how good you are in certain fields, certain aspects, and they will talk about you. And so it's really working through people to toot the horn on your behalf. So in that way, I think I'm safe. Yeah, I'm not really bragging or over bragging. However, that said, I had issues when people on my team tell me, say, hey, Mervin, you got to be a bit more visible. You got to
Yeah.
say more. You got to be more on social media. So you cannot keep always hiding behind the camera. You got to be out there. And that's when I have the challenge. I have the struggle and say, okay, I have to have this balance. I'm out there, yet I like what Mazuki said. He's so philosophical a little bit, and it's really the values. I know deep inside all these achievements came as a result of what I've been blessed with, and came as a result of people helping me become successful,
Absolutely.
I think I put my feet on the ground. I'm not floating, you know. And so I think within me, talk about the value, right? Humility as in value. And I think I keep myself rooted to the ground. I believe I know where I stand. I just need to project it in such a way that people say, okay, he's good, but he's aware that he's good because others have contributed to his success. So that was a little bit tricky, yeah. So it's
No,
very
but I think
interesting. Yeah.
it's really nice how you being an introvert and everybody who knows you knows that you're an introvert because you run the Introvert Network Asia, right? so,
Yeah.
so you're an introvert, but yet you're able to reconcile the need to promote yourself and still be true to yourself,
Oh,
right?
definitely. Yeah. So that word you all mentioned in authentic, one of the things, that's the description I put of the network, where we want authentic. We want, those true to themselves as an introvert, you know. We are not against the extroverts, definitely not. In fact, I'm asking the introverts to connect with these extroverts because there is something we can learn from them. I would like to
Absolutely.
think that that's humility, isn't it? That means I am introverted. I have my positive traits, my attributes, but I know the extroverts have theirs too. So if I can switch on my humility, antenna and start picking up some of these positive traits that these extroverts have, I think it is well and good. I don't have to change. My core authenticity is right there. I'm still core introvert, but I can relate with people, picking up some of these traits that the extroverts have. I didn't have to change. I just relate better with people. Yeah.
Excellent. I noticed that there is a thread common that all of you are saying that part of humility is being open to learning from other people. Even if they are very different from you, different cultures, you just be open. That's a very integral part of humility. So, Aisha, I would like to hear your comments on how you have reconciled having to promote yourself and staying true to being an Asian and being humble.
Absolutely. I was listening to Marjuki with some philosophical part, and I felt so connected, and Tony and Marvin too. And I would say you don't have to push yourself being something different than you're not, right? We have to recognize what's my core and possess that and own that and step into that position, and your essence will be projecting your true self. I don't have to portray something different. If I'm not comfortable doing a lot of video on the Facebook and being more live, I can write. I can send my thought by my writing through my newsletter. So that's my introvert side through which I can reach to my people. And I know there are my people. They like it. They like reading that. And I do have a connection to those people. I don't have to meet the expectation for everyone. We cannot. We cannot. But what we can, I can be feeling so comfortable and secure with my own uh, ways of doing things. That's my authenticity. And also understanding people have also their own ways to receiving things and respecting their values, respecting their perspective, listening to that, not having any filter once you're listening to that. The moment we start filtering once we're listening to others, because we have our ego step in and then we started comparing to my perspective to their perspective. So having that openness to be like having expansion of your mind and able to see them as a human and receiving them as a person, and that's a beautiful place you can stay, and it's a sustainable place to stay.
Mm,
So none of us are playing a short-term game that will achieving
mm,
something by end of this year, next year. None of us. So we are having a lifestyle. We are having a game that will sustain as long I sustain. So being
mm.
comfortable with what I am and just doing it, and the people will take you the way you are.
Excellent. So, uh, it seems like you're saying, do what's right for you.
Absolutely.
Having said that, I also want to point out one thing that has also troubled me for many years as far as social media is concerned. So I used to be not so active on social media, but I always get people like what Mervyn was saying. You need to put yourself out there, right? You need to be on social media, LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. And I find that all very tiring. It's like it drains my energy. So that's the introvert part of me speaking, right? And and then as I'm thinking about this topic, I realize that a lot of the do's and don'ts on social media came from a Western culture where speaking up for yourself is really what they promote, right? And amplifying your achievement is something that is very acceptable in their culture. So I'm very curious how you have shared, Aisha and Mervyn, you have shared how we can reconcile with that. So now I want to hear from Mazuki and Tony. How do you reconcile with that, Mazuki?
Um, for me, once I understand that the difference that makes the difference in every behavior is the intention, then there is no reconciliation required. I may be putting out a post on Facebook.
Mm.
If it is with the intention of getting known, getting people to adulate me, then
Mm.
that will get in the way of my being respectful to others, and I will not be congruent with myself. Now, if
Okay.
I were to post the same thing on Facebook with the intention of sharing something useful and beneficial to others so that their lives can become better, it is not in conflict. So the key here is the intention. So
Mm.
regardless whether you are an introvert or extrovert, in today's day and age, people will not get any value from you if your voice is not heard. So it is our responsibility to get our voices heard
Wow,
so
that's
that others can benefit. So now, when I operate from that, I have no issues about going out there and sharing my ideas, and sharing not from the position of teaching. I'm sharing from the position of, if you can find some use from my experience, go ahead and use this so that your lives will become wealthier for that. So the key is in the intention. So that's why
mm.
you need to examine the meanings that you put to your behavior to the highest level. Those will be your intentions. Once you have it clear, then you are in the state of flow. So that's how I discovered it. Because as Mervyn mentioned, him being an introvert, I can also lay claim. Yes, now I find the president, then I can join your society. Uh,
That's one in Malaysia. KL. All right.
it's initially it was a struggle for me because I do not want to be known. It's just that a friend asked the question, how good will you be to anybody if you're dead? So if you do not bring your ideas to people, you are as good as dead.
So what you're saying, Mazuki, is share with the intention of helping other people, not about promoting yourself. But by sharing, that humility of wanting to share and helping others improve with your knowledge is in itself a promotion, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Tony, I want to hear. Now, it seems, Tony, you are coming from the other direction. So from not being humble, I don't know what word is opposite of humble, but let's not go there. Not being humble to being humble. How did you reconcile that and make it your own? And now you have to promote yourself as a speaker, as a transformational coach. How do you promote
That's
yourself
right.
while being humble?
Okay, so three major factors have helped me change my view about humility. Number one, being a Filipina, it's very innate in us, this concept of bayanihan. It's a
Mm,
local term, we call it bayanihan, equivalent to helping each other.
mm,
Number two, major factor that really changed my view of humility is my being an image consultant, because now we understood that we can be misinterpreted. We call it the perception or impression management, and how we present ourselves may not be equal to what equivalent to our intention, to our heart and everything. That's why we need to manage the perception and impression of other people. Third is my being a Hagai international leader, wherein it really changed my mindset that it's very important to bow down to God, and in due time He will lift us up. So how did everything change? Everything is actually the issue of the heart. Our humility, my humility, depends on the condition of my heart. So if my heart is hurting, it will emanate in the way I promote myself. If my heart is still on the coping mechanism, all my statements will be bragging, so that I will feel the entitlement, I will feel the importance and significance. But when your heart is healed, filled with love, then comes the combination of the three exposure that I had, helping, that you will now understand the need of my target audience. And from that, that's the only time, that's the content that I need to talk about, that I need to present. So even if these are my qualifications, credentials, and certification, if it's not matching the need of my target audience, then there's no promotion at all. So promotion is just like actually a term being used in marketing, right? But at the center of it is really how are you affecting the people listening to you? Because as a leader, we are just either affecting them negatively and positively. And I believe humility coming from a good heart will always affect people, whether young or old, professional or not, amateur. It will all end up as they felt, or they will feel that you care for them, that you are there to help them. So the promotion now becomes like something that is not being the facade of everything of your social media post, because you're now authentic. You're now no longer after the facade that is acceptable to them, but you are after the authenticity that talks about real truth. And you also want them to experience what, for example, me, I discovered that if this is my identity, if I am not a mistake, if I am, if I have my own strengths, I have my specific brand, then I don't need to copy somebody else. And if that truth will also be learned and discovered by my target audience, or at least anyone related to my target audience, it will now become fulfilling to me, without really being proud, but at least something that because humility, I'm sure all of us will agree, it makes us feel happy. It makes us feel fulfilled, right? Because out of that comes collaboration, helping, and another person validating. Thank you for making me see, these things that I don't see before. Thank you that because of your post, I hear now, well, let's take it, brutal truths that I never heard before. And I believe humility can make everyone successful as long as we use it in the right context.
Beautiful. You said it so beautifully. Now, just to wrap up the whole discussion, um, think about humility as you believe it now. Give me, or let's share with everyone uh, three elements that should be part of humility as we have defined it today. Let's go with Mazuki. What do you think? What are the three things that we need as part of humility?
For me, the uh, primary part of humility is having a solid belief that no man is superior to others. That we are all human beings, we are created equal, we are at the same level.
So that's one. Seeing everyone as equal, right?
As equal. Yeah. The only reason why we are unequal in the way that we live our lives is due to the differences in our competencies. It has nothing to do with our being. As a being, we are beautiful, we are complete, and we deserve to esteem ourselves unconditionally. It's
That's
just that
beautiful. Yeah.
because I am competent in one area, I perform more superior than you in that area doesn't mean that I am a more superior being than you. It's just that I am superior in my performance in that particular skill, in this particular skill, in this particular skill. So um, it's about making a distinction between me as a being and me as a doer. So my
The skills and the person, right?
the
Yeah.
skill and the person. In terms of the person, we are all equal. In terms of the skills, we are not equal. We need to learn the different skills that we need to thrive in our life. So
Okay. Um,
that is the main thing that I would just want to mention.
awesome. Okay. So that one powerful point is worth 3 points. Okay. So, all right. Okay, Aisha, what is that one thing that we should add into the definition of humility today?
For me, I would say, like, we are all human. We just need to be the being, like being myself, being, understanding what I really want, what is my core value.
Mm,
Do I practice myself, like, or I'm modifying myself based on the surrounding? So
mm,
there are some places you will see that we try to adapt, but we cannot take it because there are some conflict between my value to the thing that I'm trying to adapting. So
mm.
understanding the deeper emotion that is conflicting to be projecting something else. So again, you have to have that being all the time. Just
So
be
so
yourself.
you're saying that we need to work out what our personal values and live with our personal. I mean, live through our values rather than trying to be someone else, right?
And having the inside of the courage, like not showing something, like not being very visible, but having the peace and calm and centered courage to be a practitioner of your own value,
Awesome.
regardless of whatever situation we are in.
Okay, Mervin, what's your one element for humility?
3 words: work in progress. So
Yeah.
I think that has to do with self awareness, what I've got, the strength I have, my weaknesses I can work on, and then start relating with people, impacting lives. So
Awesome. So
work in progress.
we are always a being that's work in progress, right? We are never. There's no top. There's no top. Right? Yeah. Tony, to add the final point to what humility means.
Humility for me is 3I: inspiring
Yeah.
self, inspiring others, and inspiring legacy. Inspiring self is the foundation. We need to understand who we are, our identity, our brand, our strengths, and our uniqueness. And we need to be grounded in the right source of confidence, because we cannot immediately jump to, trying to impress others or inspire others when you yourself don't understand everything. We will begin copying, and that's not the right way, or that's not
Mm,
humility. Then
mm,
once you are okay, once everything is clear about your identity, we can now begin embracing, in humility, embrace corrections, like how should we look, how should we act, how should we behave, and what are
mm,
the other things we need to observe both online and offline. And the combination of the two, inspiring self and inspiring others, I believe will always result to inspiring legacy. And that's humility. It's like a long-term vision that is achievable as long as what you do moment to moment, week by week, and month by month is within a system or good
mm.
habits that will make for you and will not break you.
Wow, so beautiful. Every one of you have given so much value. I don't know about people, friends. Aren't they great? It's amazing. Pifang is reiterating what Tony just said, right? Okay. So it seems to me, to conclude, seems like humility is not a derailer. It's an enabler if you do it in the right way, with the right intention, and in the right context. Am I not Wrong. Am I right? Yeah.
Two thumbs up.
Cool. Awesome. Now, before we close this, I'm sure there are people out there who wants to reach out to every one of you. So, can you just very quickly, if people want to reach out to you, how can they reach out to you? And maybe even share one very quick point of what you do, just to remind everyone. Aisha.
Yeah, I help people like you who wants to be ambitious with your life. And so you can reach me by my website, aishabibha.com. So I'll be happy to connect with you.
All right. Marzuki.
Currently, I'm focused on helping people to actualize wealth in all the areas of their life. So if you want to reach me, you can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn. I'm there. Yeah.
All right. Tony.
I help people, I help leaders, particularly leaders, to become influential and have the right source of confidence. So you can reach me at www.tony.ph and radiance.ph.
Nice. Mervin.
I help introverts connect with people and lead others. You can look for me at LinkedIn or Facebook or quietimpact.asia.
Okay, so like what one of our viewer Hui Fang is saying, each one of you later you can put in your connections on Facebook. And wow, Ramesh Tarani is saying that today's session is awesome, fully reinforced. Let me put it there. Yeah, today's awesome, fully reinforced my belief that we all rise by uplifting others, and that only can happen once we stay humble and behave with humility and love. And guys, me to all my guests, all four of you, it's been amazing because all this while I don't know whether I'm kind of like switch between, is it an enabler? Is it a derailer? Sometimes I think it's a derailer. Sometimes I think it's an enabler. But you have put everything in context and put all the parts together to form a whole picture. Very beautiful. So thank you for saying yes to this interview, this session. Aisha, Marzuki, Tony, Mervin, thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Friends, have a great day. And please share this to all your friends because what they have shared is amazing. More people need to hear this. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.